Imagine the scene: a hot car, a boy locked inside, alone, calling for help. And who shows up to save his life? A simple nanny, from humble beginnings, who, with courage and instinct, breaks the glass and saves the millionaire's son from a tragic fate. But what seemed like just another heroic act by an ordinary person soon turns into something much deeper. After saving the boy, Emily, the nanny, begins to realize that her relationship with the Harris family isn't as simple as it seems. Little Ethan becomes intensely attached to her, something even his own parents, busy with their luxurious business, can't provide. But amidst all this, the housekeeper, Catherine, sees this bond as a threat. What will she do to destroy Emily and drive her away from the family? What no one could have imagined is that behind this forgetting of a son in the car, there are dark secrets, manipulations, and intrigues that will forever change Emily and Ethan's lives. But the biggest surprise will come from the least expected place. You'll be shocked by what lies behind this forgetting. Prepare yourself for a story of betrayal, loyalty, and justice that will keep you on the edge of your seat until the last second. Don't miss it. Emily Taylor was a dedicated and humble nanny who worked for the Harris family, one of the wealthiest families in Silverwood, Connecticut. Her job, though challenging, was enough to support herself and, more importantly, provide a better life for her son Lucas. When she was given the opportunity to work for such a rich family, she knew it would be a huge challenge but also a chance to improve her life. She had no idea, however, that this opportunity would place her at the center of a family intrigue. On a particularly hot summer day, when the sun burned intensely in the sky, Emily prepared for her work shift at the Harris mansion. Daniel Harris's car was parked in the garage, but what caught her attention was the car's open window, where she heard a muffled sound. As she approached, she realized that little Ethan Harris was locked inside the car, visibly scared, sweating, and trying to call for his mother. Without hesitation, Emily ran to the car, and with a surge of concern, managed to unlock the door. Ethan, with teary eyes, looked at her with a relieved expression. She pulled him out of the car, still not understanding how he had been locked inside for so long. The doors were locked, and no one seemed to notice the boy's absence. "Are you okay, Ethan?" she asked softly. The boy nodded, but his eyes shone with fear. "I just wanted to leave, but no one heard me," he said, his voice barely audible. Emily hugged him, trying to calm him down, and soon felt something was wrong. He was visibly neglected, and despite the outward appearance of a luxurious life, Ethan seemed starved for attention. Looking around, Emily realized no one was nearby. She knew she should alert Ethan's parents, but she still didn't fully understand the situation. However, the bond between them was being formed in that moment. After the incident in the car, Ethan grew even closer to Emily. Every day, she spent hours with him, caring for him with patience and affection, something he rarely received from his parents. Daniel and his wife, Amanda Harris, were always busy with business trips and social events, leaving Ethan alone and without the necessary attention. Over time, Ethan began to trust Emily in a way he hadn't with anyone else. He spoke about his fears and the emptiness he felt in the absence of his parents. "They're always busy, but I just wish they were here," Ethan confessed, looking at Emily with sad eyes. Emily, with her heart aching, felt the boy's pain but knew her mission was to ensure he felt safe and loved, at least while she was around. She, who had grown up in a humble environment, understood very well what loneliness and neglect were, and she was determined to be the person he needed. But soon, the family's housekeeper, Catherine Greene, began to watch the relationship between Emily and Ethan with suspicion. Catherine didn't like the way Emily had gotten close to Ethan, and her jealousy and envy started to take over. The housekeeper, who had always held a position of power in the house, began to manipulate the situation to discredit Emily, with the goal of pushing her away from the family. Emily slowly realized that Catherine was becoming a threat. Small gestures of distrust started to appear, from subtle comments to disguised accusations. Catherine was determined to get rid of Emily and gain Daniel Harris's trust, whom she saw as a source of power. Days passed, and the tension in the Harris household began to rise. Catherine Greene, the housekeeper, became increasingly relentless. She felt threatened by the bond Emily had developed with Ethan and, as she had always done, started using her position to manipulate the situation in her favor. She knew that with Emily's image tarnished, she could win Daniel Harris's trust and gain more power in the house. Catherine began to plant seeds of doubt, spreading rumors among the other staff about Emily's behavior. "She doesn't know how to control the boy," she would say subtly, always giving the impression that Emily was not the right person to care for Ethan. Emily's small mistakes, like an occasional delay or a small error in Ethan's routine, were distorted and presented as negligence. Meanwhile, Emily focused on caring for Ethan, who seemed more lost and lonely with each passing day. With every conversation she had with him, he expressed more frustration about the absence of his parents, and Emily felt an increasing pain in her heart. She knew that despite all the money and luxury, Ethan was suffering from a huge lack of love and attention. One afternoon, while she was in the garden with Ethan, Emily overheard Catherine speaking to Amanda Harris, Daniel's wife. Catherine was speaking softly, but Emily was able to catch some words. "I don't think Emily is capable of caring for Ethan. She doesn't have the necessary experience. He's becoming harder to control." Emily was stunned when she heard that. She felt betrayed, as if she had been placed in a vulnerable position so someone else could take her place. But not knowing exactly what to do, she decided to confront Catherine. "I won't let you ruin the relationship I'm trying to build with Ethan," Emily thought, determined. The atmosphere in the Harris household was growing increasingly tense. Catherine's manipulations were starting to take effect, and a difficult situation was about to unfold. During a dinner with important guests, Ethan, as usual, was acting rebellious, clearly feeling the lack of attention from his parents. He began to act more provocatively, which caught everyone's attention. Daniel and Amanda were preoccupied with their own matters, and that was when Catherine saw an opportunity. She suggested that Emily wasn't doing a good job of controlling Ethan's behavior, and insinuated that he was becoming more disobedient due to a lack of discipline. "I think Emily should focus more on teaching Ethan to respect the rules of the house. He's clearly taking advantage of the situation," Catherine said, casting a sly look at Emily. The tension became unbearable when Catherine went further, insinuating that the nanny was being negligent with the child. "I saw Ethan acting strangely when he was with her. He hid in the corner of the garden, and Emily didn't seem to care," Catherine stated, almost accusatorily. Daniel, who had already started to worry about Ethan's behavior, stayed silent, observing everything being said. Amanda, though seeming uncomfortable, also didn't make an effort to speak up. Emily felt the pressure mounting as she tried to defend herself, but Catherine's position was too strong, and Emily's words seemed to have less weight. Ethan, who had been watching everything from a distance, didn't fully understand what was happening, but his look at Emily was full of confusion. He knew something wasn't right, but he didn't have the words to express what he was feeling. With the increasing pressure and Catherine's manipulations, Emily felt her situation becoming more and more difficult. Despite her dedication, she realized she was being backed into a corner. The accusations of negligence were gaining momentum, and rumors about her incompetence were spreading throughout the house. However, what she didn't know was that the truth was about to be revealed, but in an unexpected way. One afternoon, while Ethan was playing in the garden, he began to speak more about what he had witnessed and some conversations he had overheard between his mother and Catherine. "I heard Mrs. Catherine saying you were doing everything wrong, but she was lying, wasn't she, Emily?" Ethan asked with an innocence that broke Emily's heart. He continued, still a bit confused. "She also said you were trying to make me like you so I wouldn't need my mom and dad. But I really like you, Emily. It's not wrong to like someone, right?" Ethan's words made Emily certain that Catherine was manipulating the child to make her seem incompetent in the eyes of Daniel and Amanda. Feeling the situation becoming unsustainable, Emily searched for ways to prove her innocence. That's when, by chance, she found some text messages on Catherine's phone, revealing that Catherine had been in contact with other staff members to spread lies about Emily. The evidence was clear. Catherine wasn't just manipulating situations, she was orchestrating a series of intrigues to get Emily out of the picture. Determined not to be another pawn in Catherine's game, Ethan began to realize more than ever that the only person he could fully trust was Emily. He warned her about the new manipulations, and Emily, with a mix of relief and anger, knew she would have to act to clear her name and expose the truth. Emily knew she had to confront Catherine once and for all, but before doing so, she needed to make sure she had all the possible evidence. The text messages she had found were the first step, but she knew that wouldn't be enough. She began to gather all the evidence that Catherine was sabotaging her position in the house. With Ethan's help, she reviewed the house's security footage and found clear evidence that Catherine, while acting as the trusted housekeeper, was manipulating events to incriminate Emily. When the moment came, Emily gathered all her courage and confronted Catherine in the living room, where she was alone, waiting for another opportunity to throw more accusations at her. "Catherine, I know what you're doing. I found the proof of your manipulations, and this is going to end now," Emily said firmly, showing the text messages and the security footage records. For a moment, Catherine stood silent, her face flushed with anger. But quickly, she tried to turn the situation around. "You're delusional. This is all a fabrication of yours, Emily. Who will believe you? You're just a nanny, and I'm part of the family," Catherine shouted, trying to intimidate Emily. "I'm not just a nanny, Catherine. I'm the only person here to take care of Ethan, and I'm going to fight for what's right," Emily replied, keeping her calm. She knew the truth was on her side, and with Ethan by her side, she was ready to face anything. The confrontation was tense, but the truth began to spread. Ethan, now completely convinced that Catherine was the real culprit, decided to take action. He ran to Daniel and Amanda, who were in another room, and revealed everything he had heard and witnessed. He wasn't afraid to speak, and for the first time, he felt safe telling the truth. "I know, Mrs. Catherine isn't who she says she is. She's doing bad things, and Emily never did anything wrong," Ethan said, his voice full of conviction. With the truth starting to come to light, Emily felt a mix of relief and deep fear. Ethan's support and the evidence against Catherine were valuable, but she knew the final confrontation was only just beginning. Now, it was time for Daniel Harris to look at the situation with more critical eyes and see the truth about the housekeeper he had trusted for so long. The situation took an unexpected turn when, during a casual conversation with Daniel's wife, Amanda, Emily discovered something more about Catherine's past. In a meeting with the family's lawyer, Amanda mentioned something about an incident with a former housekeeper who, for unknown reasons, had been forced to leave. Emily, with her sharp intuition, began to investigate further and discovered that Catherine had been fired from her last job due to manipulative behaviors and lack of professional ethics. Without wasting time, Emily sought evidence about this incident, and was able to find records from the previous family Catherine had worked for. There, she discovered that Catherine had been accused of emotional manipulation and psychological abuse toward children under her care. Catherine's past was finally being revealed, and everything pointed to the fact that she had infiltrated the Harris household with the same intent: to gain power by manipulating and controlling those around her. With this new evidence, Emily felt more confident, but she knew that now, more than ever, she needed to confront Daniel and show him that Catherine was a real threat. Ethan, now fully aware that Emily was the only person he could trust, began to open up even more to her. One quiet evening, while they were alone in the living room, Ethan looked at Emily and with eyes full of sincerity said, "I know you're not like the others, Emily. You always take care of me, you're always by my side. I love my mom and dad, but you're different. I trust you more than anyone in the world." These simple and sincere words touched Emily's heart deeply. She knew her love for Ethan was genuine and that the bond between them was something that transcended any other relationship. To her, he wasn't just a child under her care. He was almost like a son, someone she had promised to protect. But with the truth about Catherine now out of control, Emily knew the battle was far from over. She felt an unconditional love for Ethan, but she also knew she would need to fight for her own dignity and the security of her future with the Harris family. She never imagined that her relationship with Ethan, which started with a simple nanny job, would turn into something so profound, but she was ready to face the consequences of her love and loyalty. In a conversation with Daniel, Emily had the chance to express what she truly felt. "I'm not just your nanny, Daniel. I'm someone who loves your son deeply. I've always been dedicated to him, but you need to understand that I'm not the only one responsible for this. I need your trust and your help." Daniel, hearing Emily's words, finally began to realize the magnitude of the situation. He wasn't just dealing with a dispute between employees. He was dealing with the real protection and love Emily offered Ethan, something he and his wife couldn't give their son. With the evidence finally gathered and Catherine's lies exposed, the final confrontation took place. Emily knew this was the decisive moment. It was time for Daniel Harris to face the truth head-on and seek justice. On a quiet afternoon in the mansion, Emily, Ethan, and Daniel sat in the living room. The atmosphere was heavy, and Daniel's gaze was filled with tension. Emily began without hesitation. "Daniel, everything that happened with Ethan and me is no coincidence. Catherine manipulated all of this. I have the evidence, and more importantly, Ethan knows what she did." Daniel, still surprised and with a firm gaze, looked at the child by his side. "Ethan, what do you know about all of this?" He was clearly shaken, but now he understood that he could no longer ignore the truth. Ethan, with a serious look, stepped forward and spoke confidently. "I know Catherine lied. She told me things about Emily that weren't true. And when she made me believe she was protecting my dad, I realized she just wanted to manipulate me. I trust Emily." With Ethan's words, Daniel finally found himself confronted by the reality he didn't want to see. He had been blind to Catherine's manipulations, but now, hearing his son, the truth could not be ignored. "Catherine, you're a fraud. You're fired and have no place in this house," Daniel said firmly, looking directly at the housekeeper, who was standing in silence, hearing everything. Catherine's expression of anger and frustration turned into desperation. She tried to argue, but the evidence against her was clear. "This is a mistake, Daniel. I have years of experience. I won't let this woman destroy everything we've built." But her words fell on deaf ears. Emily, now with the truth revealed, looked at Catherine and said calmly, "You never defeated me. I've always been here for Ethan, and that's something neither you nor any lie can erase." Catherine was finally expelled from the house, but the damage caused by her lies still left scars. Justice had been served, and the real story was now in the hands of Daniel and Emily. With Catherine out of the picture, Emily and Ethan began a new journey together. Daniel, touched by Emily's loyalty and genuine love, rewarded her with a new trusted role in the house. She became not just Ethan's nanny but an essential figure in the Harris family. Daniel, finally realizing his neglect of his own son, began spending more time with Ethan. The bond between father and son grew stronger, and he promised never to let work and money drive a wedge between his family. He also apologized to Emily, acknowledging her dedication and the crucial role she played in his son's life. Ethan, in turn, never felt alone again. He knew Emily would always be his safe harbor, and with her by his side, he finally felt he could grow with genuine love and support. Together, they began to build a new future, more united than ever. Emily, looking at Ethan, knew that the battle for justice had been tough, but now she had the trust of the most important person in her life. She was no longer just a nanny. She was a mother to Ethan, and with that, she found her true place in the Harris family. And so the truth finally came to light, and Nanny Emily proved, beyond question, that love and loyalty can overcome even the greatest manipulations. Emily's fight for justice and the way she won Ethan's heart showed that true strength doesn't lie in power or money, but in the ability to protect and love unconditionally. But what happened to Catherine? And how did this story impact the Harris family forever? If you found this story moving, just wait until you see what's coming next. We can't help but warn you, there are many more secrets and twists coming your way. If you were touched by this story and want to see more like it, don't forget to like, comment, and share with your friends. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to the channel now so you don't miss any new videos. We have many more mystery, emotion, and overcoming stories waiting for you. Stay tuned, because the next story will surprise you even more. Nanny saves millionaire's son, forgotten in the car. The reason will shock you.